Hello everyone, and welcome to the Biblical Bookworm. My name is Elizabeth, if you don't know me yet, and today is a special video because I will give you 7 reasons why you should read more spiritual books. I'm so excited for this because I've spent the past year trying to read a spiritual book a week, and now I will share the results with you and also add some quotes from saints and other interesting people. And the goal of this video is nothing less than to set you on fire for spiritual books. I would like to start with a quote by C.S. Lewis, who said that Christianity, if false, is of no importance, but if true, of infinite importance. The only thing it can't be is moderately important. And what I would like to say with this quote in this video today is that if there is any chance that God exists, and if you're here, you probably think that he probably exists, the most important thing for us during our lives is to find out more about him, what he wants from us, who he is. And the reason why Christianity can't be moderately important, as C.S. Lewis says, is because we have to remember what is at stake. We know that after our death, if we believe in God and if he actually exists, we have eternity, and eternity can be either infinitely bad or infinitely good, either heaven or hell. And that's the reason why Christianity can be either of no importance or of infinite importance. And if it is of infinite importance, we really should use our time on earth to do some serious research on religion. The second reason for reading more spiritual books is that I've read in one of the books this year that when we pray, we speak to God. And if we read, God speaks to us. And also, if we meditate, we need some material to meditate on. You can't just meditate without knowing anything about the subject you're meditating on. For example, the rosary. If you have no idea about the events that we should meditate on during the rosary, you have no possibility to actually meditate on that. And maybe you're asking yourself, why is meditating such an important thing? And here I would like to address a quote by Saint Teresa of Avila, who said that someone who does not meditate doesn't need a devil to cast him into hell, because he casts himself into hell. Now, I've said in the previous section of the video that when we pray, we speak to God, and when we read, God speaks to us. And now I would like to explain how that works a little bit. And in my experience, which I made during the last year, I saw that sometimes I had a moral question which I didn't have an opportunity to ask my spiritual director, or I didn't feel comfortable asking it, or there were just too many questions. And I happened to read a book that answered that exact question. And I'm not talking here about the type of answers you get when you randomly open the Bible and think that that's the answer for your life, but I actually read the exact same words in that book, which I was asking myself in my head the whole time. So that's really helpful for me. And another thing is that sometimes I had no idea that something would be a wrong decision or a bad idea to do. And I was casually reading a book, and the book says, don't do this, because that way you will end up in hell or something like that. And that has prevented me from doing things that are not intrinsically sinful, but still not the wisest thing to do. The fourth reason to read more spiritual books is that spiritual books, in my experience, have the power to destroy your doubts that you might have with your faith. And for this, we have to know that there are 2 types of doubts. Those are emotional doubts and intellectual doubts. C.S. Lewis explains that in at least 2 of his books. And reading spiritual books can help you with, and will help you, in my experience, with intellectual doubts, which means that intellectual doubts would be that someone says something about Christianity and you're caught off guard and you have no idea what to answer, and you start having doubts, and you think that because you don't know the answer, your faith must be wrong. So with this type of problem, reading religious books will definitely help. And the other type of doubts would be emotional doubts, which can't be solved with books, unfortunately, but those are the less important doubts, because emotional doubts would be that you know exactly that something is true, and the circumstances you're in just make you feel like maybe you're wrong. For example, C.S. Lewis explains that you have a rope and you are 100% sure that this rope is strong, is solid. You've read 100 reviews on the internet that this rope is the absolutely best rope for everything. And then your life is at stake and this rope has to save your life. And suddenly you have doubts about this rope. You feel insecure, you don't know. And that's the type of doubts that spiritual books won't solve, but still, solving intellectual doubts is a big deal. Now let's get to the fifth reason, which is you make connections and you have great conversations just because you read some books. And here I would like to talk about an experience I made on the train from Munich, Germany, back to Austria. And I was sitting in the train and reading a book. And then there came an American guy, like 60 years old or something like that. And, I helped him a little bit with the communication with the other passengers because he didn't speak German. And then I sat down again and continued reading my book. And I was reading this book over here. That's The Case for Christ, in German, Der Fall für Jesus. And the guy in front of me started talking to me about the book. He asked me, is this Lee Strobel? He read the name, and he said to me that he knows Lee Strobel personally. And is this Der Fall für Christ, Der Fall für Jesus, is this the case for Christ? And I was like, yes. And he said, oh, I'm Jewish. I've read so many books about Christianity and about apologetics. And I'm actually a rabbi. And I asked myself, what? And it turned out he actually was a rabbi. And long story short, I ended up having the most interesting conversation probably of my life. We ended up talking for an hour about the Bible. And all of that happened just because I was sitting in a train and reading a book. The sixth reason to read more spiritual books is a quote by the Curé of Ars, who said that for the instructed, there is always hope. And I've heard this sentence when I was listening to a collection of his sermons. I don't know if that counts as a book. I was listening to it as an audiobook version to the sermons the Curé of Ars made, and there he said that for the instructed there is always hope. And what he meant by that, he explained that he sees so many faithful who have little holiness, or who actually are not holy because they are uninstructed. And he said that an instructed person, even if that person stops practicing Catholicism and becomes an atheist or whatever, those people, at least theoretically, know what would be the right way, and they know how they can come back. So it's always good to be instructed. The last reason for today is that in order to love, you have to know the person you're loving. And maybe some of you are now disappointed because we've had so many good reasons, and now this a bit vague reasons comes up. And I would like to explain it a little bit. I've said in 2 previous videos that saints say that the way to sanctity, to holiness, is love. I've said that in Uniformity with God's Will, and also An Easy Way to Become a Saint. I will link those books up here. And now that we know that the way to sanctity is love, and the way to love is through knowledge, now we have to say, why is sanctity such an important thing? And here I would like to quote Léon Bloy, who was a French poet who was very active in defending the Catholic faith. And he said that the only real failure, the only real sadness, and the only great tragedy in life is to not have become a saint. So the goal is not to, spend half an eternity in purgatory and then eventually come to get to heaven, but the goal is actually to become a saint. Everything else would be the only tragedy of life. And if you're thinking that, oh, everyone gets to purgatory, I've committed so many sins, there are no excuses, I've made a video about Read Me or Rue It by Father Paul O'Sullivan, where he says how we can avoid purgatory. I will link that video also over here. So I hope that motivated you to read more books next year. And please don't get discouraged if you fail reading a book, if the books seem to be boring. Just ask the Lord to help you with that. Actually, at the beginning of this year, I hated the idea of reading spiritual books. And now I have a YouTube channel where I talk about them. So there is always hope, and God will help you with that. And also, please don't read along with my channel. Those videos are not meant to be read at the same time that I publish them. Don't try to do that, because some books just take longer than a week and others take way shorter than a week. So just choose your individual path. And let me know if you like the video in the comments. Let me know if you start reading books next year. And definitely share this video with other people who need to hear that too. Maybe you have some other friends whom you would like to do the journey with together next year. And that's been it for today. God bless. Bye!